As I was browsing Instagram a few months ago, I started following Michael, and I was impressed about how he was one of the, we can call, influencer or educator that was the most positive I could find on Instagram. And I was impressed about how genuine and truth to himself he is always with his content, which is extremely valuable, and with his positive approach to design, but also to hard topics like business. So today we would like to join forces and talk about a topic that we both feel is very relevant, and we can try to reach as many people as possible because we believe that knowledge should be shared. Gianluca Cinquepalmi, you're listening to GLC Live, my podcast dedicated to business design. I'm an educator, design entrepreneur, and best-selling author. In this show, I challenge designers, creatives, and entrepreneurs to unravel the complexities between business and design. In this episode, resilience with Michael Janda. Hi, Michael.
Hi, thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to be here. Like I told you, I've listened to a couple of your podcast episodes, and you've got a great podcast voice and approach, and it was actually very soothing to me. I started listening. I was like, man, I could lay down at night and relax listening to his podcast voice, just the tone. So I tend to be a little bit more hyperactive in my style, so it'll be a good balance between the two of us on this one.
If you want, I can tell you a secret, which a lot of people told me this, but I had to learn this because Italian is actually a very fast-paced language as well.
Yes.
But if I want to control my accent, I need to slow down and try to think better. That's the reason.
That's your secret.
Yes.
So if you're speaking in Italian, it's very animated and very over the top.
Yes, usually.
Good.
But on the podcast, to avoid the rolling R's and to have even a thicker Italian accent, I try to pace myself and I try to think about the words that I'm saying. So, and in reality, it was kind of an accident, but it came out quite interesting. Although my wife was chastising me because she said that it was a little bit too sounding like a 1-800 number or.
Oh, funny. I'm Gianluca. Oh, 1-800-555.
Exactly.
Hey, would you be willing? Since I'll use some of this content as well, and maybe it'd be good for your listeners in general, just as a timestamp, would you be willing to share kind of what's going on in Italy? It's the most shut down country in the world right now because of coronavirus. And like you mentioned, we're going to talk about resilience. Why don't you give us some inside understanding of how things are there so that we have a better understanding, the people listening from outside of Italy?
Yeah, so I just came back. I used to live in Hong Kong for the past 10 years, and I came back for family reasons. And so the situation is quite severe, mainly because the authorities are seeing this overfloating of cases in the hospital. So I think the big issue now is that they want to maintain a certain level of service, and if you are overflooded with hundreds and thousands of cases, then even, let's say, you have a kid that makes an accident on a bike and he needs to go into ER or he needs to go into special care, then they won't have the space. So this is the major issue. I believe, although I'm not a doctor, one of the biggest issues, as you know, Italy is a very aging country, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
And then especially the northern part of Italy, this is something that a lot of people don't know. The northern part of Italy is actually extremely dense. It's not like US. If you go in Texas, you have big cities, but you also have a lot of space. Italy is
5
a small
hours
country
away. Yeah.
So this is the issue, especially the northern part of Italy, the massive production part of Italy, which is Milan or Codogno, which was the very first red zone in Italy. It's extremely dense. So this was a big problem. The second problem was that, as you know, Italy is an extremely visited country. It's a tourist country. It's one of the biggest tourist countries. Especially, we have difference from France. So once you go to Rome, you have warm weather, so you can have tourists all year round. And in the northern part, you have a lot of tourism for skiing. So the Alps, and we have hundreds of this. So when the virus hit, we had thousands, or I would say millions of people that were tourists. So this didn't help as well.
Yeah.
So the current situation is strictly monitored. We are basically in a self-induced quarantine. We can go out just to buy groceries. So all the activities are shut down. Most of the offices are working in smart working. So all big corporation, even my studio, is all now working in smart working. And few production facilities are still open, because if you don't have any other chances than working, but from home, like if you are a manufacturing plant, and we do have a lot of manufacturing plant, they're still running, but they're running up and down, and they are shutting down, and they are reducing the amount of their employees so that the density of the people is less. The situation is severe. We also need to, I think this was a big wake-up call, because we had to speed up all the advancement in technology and being ready to face this situation. So instead of, I have a lot of friends that work in banking in London or in software that were extremely comfortable and used to work from home. They already had smart working 2 or 3 days. I think the people that I meet when I go for groceries, they are not panicking. So I think sometimes the media exaggerate a little bit the situation. I mean, we are not zombies. We are dealing with it. Milan is an extremely advanced and productive city. The center part and the southern part of Italy is not as bad because of the density. Once again, we had a couple of episodes where there was, especially the initial part, the communication wasn't extremely clear, and I might say that maybe Italians are not the most prone to rules. I would say, we are very romantic. I was like, it's okay. So now I think this week was quite tough, meaning that people started realizing that it's not going to go away in 5 minutes. It's not just a flu. And the other part is that is a sneaky virus, because you have a lot of cases that don't present any symptoms. So so people are out and they don't know that they are carrying it, and they transmit it to other people. So I think the most responsible things to do is to stay at home and think about not only yourself, because you might be on your 20s, on your 30s, and be completely fine and still carry the virus. So we need to think about our elderly. We need to think about people that have a weaker immune system. So it's also a very human thing to do. We have to start thinking for the greater good and not only to ourselves. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. How many people in your family and in your loved ones, do you have several people who have had coronavirus, or no? So how is it impacting you? In my immediate circle, family and loved ones, no. I had a friend that is a video maker and he works for the news. So he's a young guy. So he got the virus when he was reporting for the virus. But he's okay. He's totally fine. He recovered. He had wife and children that moved prior to the lockdown in another city. So he just recovered, just did 14 days. It was a flu. He stayed at home, and now he's fine.
Yeah.
So
So a couple of things that I think are really important that you mentioned and why it's escalated in the lockdown in Italy, because the average age of the people there is older. It's an older country. So you have people more susceptible to the virus, and then population density as well, where there's so many people living in tighter area. That's a riskier situation as well. So,
and
you watch the news, you mentioned this, you watch the news, and the news will tell you everybody should panic. Your hair is on fire. This is awful. It's the end of the world. That's the message you get from the news. And I think it's super important to kind of take a step back and make your own assessment of the real information, which is why I loved what you shared there. It's all just about being cautious, about understanding your country's specific, unique situation, and being sensitive to the greater good of humanity, not just your own specific needs.
And this is something that I was talking with several people, and when I can coach them and relate to them, and I say, the first instinct, the human instinct, and we can talk about it a little bit later in one of these points, is to panic, is to go into survival mode. So I see a lot of people going to the supermarket, hoarding, buying toilet paper, and buying more than what is necessary. This is exactly the wrong thing to do, because now you are creating queues in the supermarket. Don't forget that there are a lot of people in need. There are a lot of elderly that don't have maybe the agility or the dexterity to come and hoard, because they live alone, so they just can take a little bit at a time. So it's very important that we become, especially in this moment of difficulties, we need to think socially. We need to be empathetic to the needs also of others. And I'm usually a super active person, and it does affect me as well. I love to go for a run. I love to biking, but the right thing to do is to, not only for me, because I think there is a trick. We have to trick our mind, right? So I would think you should think that you have the virus, right?
Yeah.
You have the virus, you are asymptomatic, you are carrying it with you, so you need to take all the precaution necessary not to spread this virus. This is the right mindset that everyone should have in this situation. Not because you feel well, etc. So when you go outside, wear a mask. If you can, wear disposable gloves. Try to, think about other people. Try to keep your distance. Not for you, but for them. Like, carry this idea. I was having this discussion with my wife. The right way to think is, I'm carrying the virus, I'm just not showing the symptoms.
Yeah. I think one of the important things about that is not because you think that you're going to infect somebody and that is going to cause the zombie apocalypse. It is because the healthcare system can't be overrun, that we can't have all of our healthcare providers servicing hundreds of thousands of people who get it. We have to slow it down so that it doesn't overrun hospitals and doctors and nurses and things that need to be able to help people. And so I think that that's an important thing to remember too. It's not that this is the end of the world. It's that healthcare providers can only handle a certain volume of people.
Yeah, and it's funny to see how I was watching the other day a TED Talk given by Bill Gates in 2015 about that the next war was going to be a pandemic, not a missile crisis, or a nuclear crisis. But he's a pretty smart guy. And, this was 2015. We should have listened. Because I think this situation, we don't need to take it too lightly, but use this situation, which is affecting us deeply, as a reflective moment. Like everything, since we are a child, your dad can tell you 10 times do not touch the fire or do not touch that, but you still do it, and until you don't get burned, you don't learn. So hopefully we are, luckily for us, we are not in the Black Plague time. We have medicine today. We are not just praying the gods, and we also have a lot of information. Yeah. So the right thing to do is to take things in our hands, to be informed. Okay. So this is another exercise that we should all do. Be extremely informed. Do not panic. Don't come to conclusions that are not reasonable, but understand what does it mean, understand how the situation can be handled. There are a lot of people working tirelessly to provide this kind of information. Try to filter information, try to understand. Don't follow news that are too dramatic, because neither you should do with the news that are too light. So just, it's a good exercise of synthesis and analysis this moment in time, I feel.
Yeah. Really good. All right. Well, that takes us into the topic.
Yes.
Now that we've set the stage, the topic is, okay, the world is crashing down around us. How do we be resilient in what we do?
So I try in this kind of moments to start reflecting on myself, right? And I've always done this, especially in my teaching days, where I always try to speak to my students in the most honest voice that I can, and talking out of experience. So when you find yourself in these moments where you are facing adversity, you are facing difficulties, you are facing hardship, what can you do? Okay, let's look at the options. Option one is you panic. I just saw one of your wonderful posts that you were saying, if you think about 10 years from now and all the bad things that could happen, that's not useful. Or we can just become depressed and thinking, oh, last summer it was so beautiful, right? So we are losing the time to reflect. So this started this process of research, and I said, okay, what can I do to solve this situation? So the skill that I started studying was exactly this one: resilience. So what does it mean to be resilient? If we look at the classic definition of resilience, is mental toughness, or the ability to go through a difficult situation and rebound from that. Right? And if we look at objects, or if we look at things, we say is their ability to spring back into the original shape. This is why in the post I used one of those 1970s Armstrong monsters, because I wanted to recall this, we are fighting this monster. So I found another definition which is much more interesting to me, which is this: our ability to advance despite adversity. Okay, so for me, this definition is extremely important. If we want to say it in less formal terms, is how you not only bounce back, but you leap forward. So in every situation that forces us, this is the same for creativity as well. Where does creativity come from? Creativity comes from constraints. When you have nothing and you need to come up with something, I call it the MacGyver syndrome, right? You need to really squeeze your brain and come up with ideas. And this situation is the same. So we have to think in these terms. We are not only going to go through this situation, but through this situation, we will become much stronger. We will learn so much from this situation. And when the situation normalizes again, we should be equipped to hit the ground running. So if in this, and I bring my personal example, something that in the last few months I've been not very disciplined about, like my exercise, because I was so busy and so distracted. Now I have the perfect time to do it, to become better.
Yeah.
So, I can picture myself 3 months from now going out and going on the beach and having this amazing body rather than being sloppy. So the first step, if we want to, I started thinking, what can I do about being resilient? Well, first of all, I need to know where I'm standing, where I'm at in my resilience scale, right? So I found a lot of studies, and I decided to follow these predictors of resilience. I found this amazing AI powered resilience app, which is called Driven. Is hellodriven.com. And I try to simplify and redesign it towards something that I am comfortable with, because like every creative person, I think I need to make the content my own in a way. And these studies have been written by Julie Rousseau, which is the CEO of this company. And so there are 5 pillars. If we want to deep dive on these 5 pillars. Number 1 is our ability to stay focused on our purpose. The second one is our ability to regulate emotions and be in the present moment, which is mindfulness. The third skill that combines the resilience is resourcefulness. So our ability to find quick and clever ways to solve a problem. The fourth one is relationships, so our support system. And the last one, which is something that we are all sensitive about, is our wellness, so our pursuit to have a good physical health. So what I did is trying to score each and one of these 5 elements and come up with my own score and say, okay, which one of these skills I need to improve to become more resilient. So if ideally all of these skills are at the top of their game, let's say they score 5 points in this chart, then it means that you are super resilient, right? So I'm a visual person like you, Michael, right? So I decided to design a spider graph. I'm also an engineer by training and a creative by trade, so I like graphs. So I said, okay, let me map these 5 things on a graph and see where do I stand. And I noticed the points that I'm more strongly, we can say I'm stronger in some points, and other points I'm weaker. So what's the takeaway of this? So the first part is, this is a wonderful time to make some assessments. Okay. We have the time. You don't have to commute. You don't have to, take meetings that people just bump into you and say, hey, can we have a coffee or something like that? So this is the first part, is we have the actual time to assess ourselves and say, okay, and this is not only on the skills of resilience. If you are a designer, you can start thinking, okay, what am I weak on? Like maybe I'm weak on color. And I say, oh, maybe I can work on color. So the first part to advance, we need to know where do we start. So first, I would say the first important step is that we start assessing ourselves, and we start to make a self-assessment. And then once we self-assess, we can start working on things that we believe are important for us. Right? So this was the initial part of the story. Yeah. So what do you think, Michael? Do you think are you a very resilient person? You must be.
I'm extremely resilient. I've been through, my career has started in 1996, and so I went through the dot bomb. I went through the economic recession. I hired employees, had slowdowns, had to lay employees off. I had to get creative, especially 2009, when the economic slowdown really impacted my business, as did everybody. I had to get creative on how we were going to stay in business. One of the things that you mentioned that I think is really, really important is knowing your purpose. And you kind of, you pass by this a little bit, but, and I know it's on your notes, but clearly defining your purpose. If you have a long-term vision of what your purpose is, it helps you be resilient so much, where you know that you're going to climb to the top of Mount Everest. So when you twist your ankle at base camp 1, you're like, well, I guess I'm going to be walking on a hurt ankle because I'm trying to get to the top of Mount Everest.
Yes.
Now, if you don't have a vision of what your purpose is, and you're just walking around on the mountain, and you twist your ankle at base camp 1, but you have no vision of getting to the top, then the likelihood of you sitting down and saying, yeah, my ankle hurts, I'm just going to sit on this rock, it's so high of a likelihood of that kind of response because you don't have any vision of where you're going. So I think that this is so critical in resilience, is defining your purpose. What are you trying to accomplish long-term in your life? And then how are you going to use this newfound time in quarantine to help you get to that end result? Yeah. I think that's so critical.
Yeah, it's super critical because sometimes we confuse also purpose with goals. If we can spend a few minutes on this, I've been working with a variety of people, from CEOs when I was doing executive training to students that are in their 20s. And surprisingly enough, they have one thing in common. They are extremely agitated and most of the time they get excited very easily. And for example, when a 19 years old or a 20 years old comes to you and says, I want to be rich. Yeah. I want to be famous. Yeah. And I said, okay, fine. How rich?
Yeah.
And usually they shut down, like, how rich? Give me a number. And because I want to be rich is not a metric, is not a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And if you say, I want to be a billionaire, I try to help them to say, okay, that's perfectly fine. You want to be a billionaire. Yeah. How you're going to do that?
Yeah.
And they start saying, whatever it is, buy stocks and buy properties and doing this and doing that. And if you are a creative person, most of the time say, I'm going to open this company and I'm going to do yada, yada, yada. And I say, okay, so you want to serve people. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, how many people do you need to serve so that, let's say you want to be a billionaire, that's 1 billion people that give you $1.
Right.
Okay. Or you can have, 1,000 people giving you $1 million.
Yeah.
So if you start breaking that purpose down, but in reality, we have to dig a little bit deeper because everyone wants to be rich. Everyone wants to be famous. Everyone wants to have freedom, but that's not necessarily a purpose, right? Your purpose is what are the things that you're going to do to reach and to achieve that objective. No? So that's the goal. But your purpose is, what do you do to achieve that goal? So I quoted in the previous episode Massimo Vignelli.
Yeah. Oh, one of my favorite designers.
Yes, mine too.
Yeah.
And Massimo Vignelli had this wonderful quote that says, the life of a designer is a life of fight against ugliness.
Yes.
So Massimo didn't want to make beautiful logos or beautiful wine labels. He wanted to fight against ugliness. That was his ultimate purpose. So when I talk with people that are in the art and design world, most of the time when they say, I want to make an agency, I want to make money, etc., most of the time what they want to do is express themselves. And especially if you want to be an artist. And then we have people like us that feel fulfilled in helping other people. That's the ultimate purpose. Then if you are consistent on this, eventually people will find that you have value. Yeah. Right? And the definition of value, what is value? Value is the size of the problem that you can solve. So if you are solving an interesting problem and people are willing to dedicate some time and effort in following your lead, then that's your purpose. Yeah. So but we need to do some self-searching first. And there is another episode I did exactly on the topic of purpose, and one exercise. I think Chris Doe also did one, and I DM him saying, hey, I actually did the same thing, which was the ikigai, So what you're good at, what can you be paid, what do you love, and what the world needs. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's all fulfilling a need.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful exercise, right? Start thinking, what's my purpose? Why am I here? What I would like to do? And your purpose can change as well. It's not something that is written in stone. I think we have this similar path where when we were in our agency time, we wanted to create something amazing.
Yeah.
And then you understood that you need people to create something amazing for other people, other companies. And then you are saying, oh, I love to help these people to thrive. So there are so many dimensions.
Yeah. I had to change my purpose in my agency time, because once I achieved my long-term vision of the size of team that I had and the studio space that I had and the types of clients that we did work for, I had checked all the boxes of that long-term vision, and now it was not motivating to me.
Absolutely.
And as a result, my resilience went down. If we had a bad client that was costing me money and emotional heartache, all of a sudden I was like, I'm not interested in solving this problem anymore. This problem hurts me worse. I just want to go sit on the rock because it's not fun for me anymore, because my vision had been achieved. And so I had to dramatically change my vision or my purpose to something new, which then built into me motivation. And then that motivation makes me more resilient when challenges arise.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can always change our vision, we can change our goal, we can adapt. The important part in this specific context of building resilience is that you have the discipline and you have the I would say also the courage to stick to that idea.
Yes.
Until you exhausted all the possible outlets of that idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and there are a lot of techniques that we can talk about, but my plan is to also kind of deep dive on each and every single one of these points. So not in this discussion, but maybe in several episodes.
Yes.
And I think the most important sub-point is we need to think about this development mindset or a growth mindset, I call it, right?
Yeah.
So we all want to become billionaires, let's say. But first, to become a billionaire, you need to start to make $10.
Yeah.
You need to start to make $100. You need to, I'm pretty sure that I remember when you started in design, probably your first ticket was, $15 by the guy down the road, right? And then when you
starter work,
of course. And then, fast forward 20 years or 15 years and you get $1 million account.
Yeah.
But without those $15, you would not reach that point. So I think a lot of people are talking about it, and I believe that this access to information didn't help, because you can have everything right now in a very fast pace. But the mindset should be, how can I improve 1% a week? 1%, and I make this example. So think about it. If you are 10% better at anything, 10% healthier each year, in 5 years, you are 50% healthier than you are now.
Yeah.
And it's a lot, right?
Yeah. I've seen people share the idea of getting 1% better every day. And when I see that, I'm like, good luck with that goal. It's so unrealistic, 1% better, because some days are good and some days are bad. Some days you wake up motivated and some days you wake up depressed and unmotivated. Some days you wake up healthy and invigorated, and some days you wake up sick. And so it's unrealistic, 1% better every day. A good stock market investment will yield for you 7, 8 to 10% per year. That's what you can expect in a good mutual fund. But over time, it compounds. And I like your perspective better. 10% better every year, man, that is doable for everybody across the planet. Even though you have a lot of down days in the year, you can still improve by 10% in a year. And next year, you're 10% better on top of the 110% you started with. And then the year after, you're 10% better on top of the 120% you started with for that year. And you get better over time, 50% better in 5 years. And it just compounds on itself. And I think that that's a much healthier perspective than people thinking, okay, I've got to get 1% better every day. I think that that's sometimes unrealistic.
But I was talking with an executive coach, and he gave me some very interesting advice. We also need to be gentle with ourselves. Most of the time we are extremely harsh. We might be the nicest person in the world, but we are extremely harsh with ourselves. So if you want to eat healthy, and you are making an effort because maybe you like cheeseburgers like everybody in the world, but you're saying, okay,
I love cheeseburgers.
Me too. Or pizza, but it's okay. So have the cheeseburger, have the pizza. The important part is that, you go back. Once again, it's your purpose. If you have one time issue, or one time you want to have a bigger meal than usual, do it, but do it consciously. And this leads to the other point, which is mindfulness. Mindfulness is this ability to regulate and be aware of our emotions. This is something that when you are working with highly performing professionals, especially, I think the new generation are much more aware of this. The older people saw this as wishy-washy, or something. Oh, that's sentimental stuff. And it's not. It's weak. Weak. But in reality, being aware of the present moment, and I will toggle with your post of today, here and now. If we could be 100% present and appreciate, okay, I'm not thinking that today I'm in lockdown, but what am I doing now? In this specific moment, I'm talking with a wonderful person. We are exchanging, we are growing, in this moment, I have to feel happy. I'm happy in this moment right now. I'm not thinking about I have dishes to wash in an hour.
Your toilet paper runs out next week.
No, I'm happy now. I'm doing something that if I was, think the beauty of this. We met through a social media. We are 10,000 miles apart. I was in Hong Kong, moved to Italy. We are in lockdown, and we can still create and share.
Amazing.
It's fantastic. So enjoy this moment. And the people that are listening this, you are talking with two guys that are in absolute, it doesn't make any sense, these two exist, and we should be appreciative. If you cherish this moment that you have, you're gaining knowledge for free from people that probably 20 years ago you couldn't even reach.
Yeah, you couldn't find them. You wouldn't even know that they existed.
They existed, right?
Yeah.
And the other part that we should be extremely aware of, there is another word that is fascinating to me, which is equanimity. Now, regulating our emotions. And, I mainly talk about business design. I mainly talk about design. I usually don't talk about these things. But it's important because it took me a lot of effort to dig deep. I also come from a society that was this kind of hyper-performing. You need to be in a certain way, and you need to appear in a certain way, etc. But when you understand that every single living entity on the planet has emotions, a dog has emotions, a human being has a lot of complex emotions. So the most detrimental thing is do not understand your emotion and don't understand what's happening. And when we talk about composure, when we talk, we all get angry. We all get angry for sometimes trivial things. And we get angry, and sometimes we also go over the top because we don't regulate these emotions and we don't understand them. You are married, Michael. I'm married. Sometimes the wife can really, and I think it's a national sport. They really want you to get angry, right? And sometimes they touch those buttons, and then if you do not know how to regulate because you have such level of intimacy with this person, you blow up in a way that you won't blow up with the business partner, right? You don't scream at your client, even if he's the worst jerk in the world, right? But the level of intimacy allows us to break loose. But if we understand these emotions, and understanding these emotions, first of all, noting that something is happening, and then we can also materialize these emotions. So you can understand in your body what's happening. Are you clenching your jaws? Is your stomach tightening up? Is your leg starting flickering? All of these are embodiment, right? And if you understand your body and you understand your emotions, you can control them. When it's totally human and it's totally normal in this moment in time where you have everybody around you panicking, everybody sending you negative messages, everybody saying, oh, this is the end of the world, everybody, you need to wash your hands 20 seconds. It's totally normal to feel anxiety, right? Why? Because we are wired this way. We are wired to fight or flight. So
anxiety is a response that your body has to keep you protected and safe. So when there is panic around you, your body's going to feel anxiety so that you change behavior. No,
that's totally normal. Now, you're not made of steel, but you can understand and you can say, okay, I'm having this anxiety coming up. How do I feel it? Oh, my mouth start watering, my heart start, and it's okay. Just feel it, embrace it, breathe through it, And you're not going to eliminate it. You're going to have it, accept the fact that you're having it, and then try to distract yourself and try to do something interesting. And try to think, okay, what am I going to do with this piece of information? And these are all small things that we need to learn, even in design, when we hear about, you know, the design blocks, or when you're sketching and something is not coming the way that you want. That happens, but it's an emotional response. So you can go through it, you know, get up, get a cup of coffee, look to the horizon, do something else. You know, if something is causing you to this anxiety and you're watching the news, don't dive into it. Turn off the TV.
Yes. Control the input.
Control the input. No, and don't forget that a lot of people, everybody is doing something toward their own good in a way. So, you know, if something is trending, like, you know, there are different people, like people that want to truly contribute and truly try to solve problems, like we are trying to do now, to give strategies and techniques to avoid things. Other people are just shackles and, oh, coronavirus, let's post about it because it's the latest thing. And if it was a dragon flying through the sky, they will talk about a dragon flying through the sky. So, and that's gonna happen, you know. There is a clip that I love, and I wonder if I can dig it up, about, there was Denzel Washington responding to a reporter, and he says, you know, if you don't look at the news, you are disinformed. If you look at the news, you are uninformed.
Yeah.
And he was
misinformed.
Misinformed. Sorry.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, he directly told the news anchor, say, you have an enormous responsibility, so you need to know what you are doing. And you don't only chase the latest thing that's happening. And this is happening in this moment of crisis. Unfortunately, this is happening more and more. So filter your information and try to stick to people that give you valuable messages and valuable informations.
Totally agree.
And also related to this, don't take things personally. Not everything is about us. We have this misconception of, oh, everything is about me. Me. And it's not like that. It's, you know, somebody else might be tired, might be scared, you know, like, oh, look, that asshole cut into line. You don't know his condition, you know. If he has his grandmother, don't make it about you. It's not a disrespect to you. He's trying to do his best. Now, you have two options. You can get angry about it, or you can try to understand the situation. So if somebody in this situation cuts in line or buys the last, whatever it is, you know, toilet paper. Yeah. Try to not make it about yourself. Try to understand and say, hey, sorry, let's say it's Michael. Let's say, hey, Michael, I see you have 5 rolls of toilet paper and this is the last one. Would you mind sharing it with me?
Yeah.
Okay, then it's about the other person, but, you know, this act of kindness sometimes is just enough to say, oh, you're right, I don't need 5, I need, you know, 2. And maybe so also our ability, but we need to regulate. There is way that we can approach these problems, right? Of course, if you start screaming at the person, the other person feel attacked and it will respond negatively. Yeah. So it's not always about us. I don't know. And then the other point, which is resourcefulness, related to this, and everybody is hoarding to, you know, buy toilet paper, but that's not the only way to wipe your ass. Yeah. You know, find other ways. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
No, it
I saw a great little meme that had a roll of paper towels, and they had sawed it in half, and so it made 2 rolls of toilet paper in size. Yeah. And you can still buy paper towels that can give you 2 rolls of toilet paper per paper towel. So I was like, yeah, that's resourcefulness. That's looking at the problem and saying, okay, I can't buy toilet paper. How do I wipe my butt?
Yeah, exactly.
What are my other options?
What are my other options? There are cultures that don't use toilet paper at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's the most sanitary thing to do, but if you are in need, I don't know, a lot of people that went hiking or that the Boy Scout, they had to find other ways.
Exactly. There are plants out there that will work just fine. Yeah.
So this is the part of resourcefulness and our ability to plan for different scenarios, and also related to our initial point of finding out what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses. If you are a particularly shy person, maybe this is the time to call your friends and to make that effort and to say, oh, I'm so lonely and Drew, and oh, nobody calls me. Well, pick up the phone and call someone.
Yeah.
Change your behavior. Challenge your biases. In this moment is a perfect moment of challenging our preconceptions and trying to like in this moment, particularly China, which was it's seen as this huge monster, is actually helping Italy greatly because they send out masks, they send out doctors, they send out a lot of help, right? So maybe we can challenge I'm not saying that we can eradicate our biases completely, but we can challenge them. When you see somebody that if your first instinct is, oh, this guy is a troublemaker, right? And that's your preconception. You don't know. Probably you're a big guy. If I see you wearing a black leather jacket in an alley, I'm scared. I was like, oh my God, this is, I don't know, a biker kind of. And you are one of the nicest persons you can meet, but it's a bias.
Yeah.
So
I do when I grow out a beard or I grow out a goatee, I look at myself in the mirror and I think, man, I'm way too mean and scary like this. It's so off brand for me. So I have to shave it off because I'm really a nice person. But when I look mean and scary, it creates the wrong impression. So I think that's interesting. But challenging your biases.
You've been going to Russia a lot.
I love Russia. I've been there 3 times, and surprisingly, I feel like I could look Russian, but they can tell I'm American. And I asked somebody there once, I was like, how does everybody know that I'm American? I get into an Uber and they start speaking to me in English, and I'm like, how do they even know that I'm American? And they said, oh, it's probably because of the way you dress, which I don't think is any different. I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt, but they can just see, or the way you carry yourself, or that your teeth are so white. That's what they tell me. They're like, oh, you have white teeth. You must be American. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. Somebody asked me if my teeth were real one time when I was in Russia, and I was like, yes, they're real. In the U.S., we have like fluoride in the water, and we have teeth whitening toothpaste and things. The U.S. has done a lot of things for dental hygiene that other countries haven't. So anyway, thought that was funny. So that kind of went into the next one after resourcefulness, which I love that topic. You mentioned it at the start. It forces us to be creative because we have new boundaries. And for us as creative people, what a great opportunity to have new constraints put on us to force us to be creative in our problem solving. I think that this is a huge opportunity. Quarantine is a great opportunity for creatives to dig deep and figure out how to be more creative inside of new boundaries.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to understand all these social media platforms. I'm trying to work on my editing skills. I'm reaching out to other people. There is also this other thing that is very important about creativity. And I want to, this message is for everyone, even if you are, I don't know, a retired policeman and you are 75. Your creativity comes through exercise. So whatever you are doing, you can try to improve your creative thinking, right?
Yeah.
So if you're cooking, I don't know, do you cook, Michael?
No.
Not at all.
No, not much. No.
Okay, let's say that.
But you cook because you're Italian, right? You're known for great food and cooking.
I love cooking. But let's say if you like pies or something like that, and your wife is doing pies, and find different ways to do it. Like do tarts. Even something very simple. Fold your clothes in a different way.
Yeah.
Find a way to take a small walk around your block, identify things that you like, combine them in a different way. So all of this is an exercise that you can actively force yourself to think in a creative way. Yeah. And creative people even more so. Like dig deeper, like you said, like truly find something that can help other people, can find solution. There is a wonderful challenge on OpenIDO, which I hope a lot of creative people will do, which is how do we communicate to large masses how to take care of their health. So this is an amazing opportunity to show off your work, to show off your creative work, and contribute to humanity too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's really great. I love new challenges as a creative person, and you don't want them to be in hardship like this. This is a time of international hardship that's affecting everybody across the globe. You don't want it to be that way, but since we have no choice in our situation, we should, as creative people, embrace the opportunity to start some new creative thinking, push ourselves to new ideas and new skills that can benefit us in the long run. The reality is that 10 years from now, we will all be wiser, richer, and happier than we are today and than we were last year. History has proven this over and over again, that 10-year cycles, you are better off 10 years from now than you are today. And 10 years from then, you will be better off than you are 10 years from now. And I think it's a great perspective that helps me be more resilient, to sit back and think, what am I going to do with this opportunity, this new boundaries and new challenges? How am I going to creatively get through this? How am I going to position myself for the emergence of a booming economy that will come after this? Any economic slowdown is followed by times of prosperity. We just don't know how long the slowdown is going to be, but there will be prosperous times afterwards, because people like you and me and everybody else who thinks this way will be resourceful. They will be creative. They will prepare themselves for the new future that is going to emerge after this trial, and they will come out of it bigger and better than ever. Yes. I believe it wholeheartedly, and we've seen it over and over and over again.
Absolutely, and accepting change, and I would like to send a message to a lot of people. Try to start thinking that things can change. They can become absolutely totally different than what they are now. Maybe you need to change your home. Maybe you need to go in another country, maybe in another state. It's okay. as long as you have, your family, your loved ones, your skills. Try to think about it. Try to also cope with the idea, not with despair, because not that, if you think and you say, oh, I love my home, I love my whatever it is, not necessarily the change is going to be worse. It could be worse. It could be better. Maybe you don't need all the stuff that we have now, and maybe you will be much happier on, I don't know, on an island in the Caribbean and living off of coconuts. Yes. I don't know. So not necessarily change could be bad. The important part, and I feel this, if we can lead to the next point, which is our ability to create social support, is this social network that we build towards. And what an opportunity now to build connections, knowledge, true relationship. You always tell it's better to have 100 true friends, right?
Yeah.
What an opportunity. I'm blessed. I feel absolutely blessed that I had this opportunity to have this conversation with somebody that I admire, that is doing something that I feel is important to instruct people, to give knowledge. And I did it in a very, very easy way. We go back to the other point, but social support. I reached out to you saying, hey, I love your content. I want to learn. What do you think? And it was truthful, open, and luckily for me, you are a wonderful person, and you say, okay, let's see if this let's do it, right? So of course you need to create quality content, and you need to do something that is of value for others, but the social support, the meaningful relationship that you build are essential, because this is all that matters, And I always have this example of, I had a student asking me, define success. And I said, I'm very successful because today, if I stop working and I don't do anything, and I ask you, Michael, now, no, we don't know each other, but if I can say, hey, look, I'm in the area, can I have dinner with you? And can I stay one night? Probably because we had this meaningful conversation, you would say yes. I say, all the students that I had around the world, they all would say yes. Some of them, their moms that saw me at graduation would say, stay a week. Would say
yes. Yes.
Right? With no money. I could travel the world. I have students from South America, from India, from Finland, from Japan. I can go wherever I want. And I always say this, how many of my clients would do that? Probably 5 or 6. Because that was a transaction, right? And some of them would not even remember me, because if I done this. But the people that I touched, truly with emotions, they would. They would say, I'm going to give you a meal and I'm going to give you a place to sleep. Which is survival if you think about it, right? So
I think that's so. I'm in the same situation. I mean, one of the greatest things that I love about what has happened to me in the past year in my social media push is making friends like you all over the world. And I mean, I really feel like I could go to almost any major city and say, hey, I'm going to be in Milan. Anybody want to go to dinner and sightsee with me? And I would have somebody in almost every major city in the world say, I'll be there. See you soon. I can't wait. And that to me is the greatest reward of all rewards that I could possibly have out of what I do. And which is why I said yes to you, which is why I replied to your direct message, because I love this connection every bit as much as you do. We are a small world right? In general, the world is smaller than it was 30 years ago because
Absolutely.
of this ability to connect socially. And I think that something like this coronavirus scare is an opportunity for the world to come together even more, where we are all united in one cause. And how often has this happened in the history of the world? Never. This is the first time ever that it's forced us to look at relationships. And that's the point of this one that you're talking about, is that it's building these relationships. We have opportunities to connect with people under a common cause. And man, what a great blessing that is.
Yeah. And also this big scare in reality showed us that it's funny to say, but there is no race.
Yeah.
There is no color, there is no religion, there is no boundaries. There was this British poet that said that the boundaries, the countries are fake.
Yeah.
They don't exist. You know, you can walk from one state to another, and it's an imaginary line. You know, we are all one big, huge population. Look what happened. It's a global issue because, like it or not, we try to build walls all the time, but whether they are physical or mental. But in reality, we are connected. We are look what happened in 2 months. This thing is spreading like crazy because we are humans. Period. And the moment we stop, I don't want to sound too philosophical, but the moment we stop building these walls between us, and we stop putting barriers of race, color, religion, accepting us. No, of course, we all have our differences and we need to be respectful of each and every single tradition. But in reality, if we can all put if all the world would focus on one thing, happiness and well-being of each other, you know, it's insane that you have countries that are dying of starvation, and you have countries that pipe oil and they have gold and Lamborghinis. And I have nothing against sports car. I love them. Maybe you need one, not 10. You know, if we could. And it's the same. That guy with the 10 Lamborghini and the guy that has a hut in Africa probably can get the virus too. That's the funny part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And once
it's so true.
And blood is red for everyone, right?
Yes.
And this I think this social cause actually proved that, and maybe we can start thinking about empathy and how we can become truly an advanced society, I think. If you think about it, in 1950s, we were going around with chariot, and in 1960, we were having the first man on the moon. But in the latest 100 years, as a society, we didn't evolve that much as a society. Yes, we have internet. Yes, we have much better stuff, but as a society, we didn't evolve too much. If you think 1960s with the social movement, there was a drive to society, and I think this thing we need to drive. We need to focus our attention on this, and this is why we are doing what we are doing. Why do we say you need to become more creative, you need to become more resilient, you need to become more empathetic? Because this is something that nobody's teaching. And I made my mission after I read this report of Davos 2020 of the 10 skills that the new workforce will have. And especially now, there was this report that said 1 billion people need to be reskilled. Right? So, which means that somebody needs to do this. All the major corporations need to do this, because they were talking about artificial intelligence. But think about now, from a UX perspective, tell me why in 24 hours a supermarket couldn't do a turnaround to say, okay, in 48 hours, I'm going to convert all my stuff and they're going to have vans that are going to do delivery.
Yeah.
Is insane. They should have.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and this is pushing us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, that's a great example of businesses are going to need to get creative to stay relevant in this. And you look forward. I mean, we're using Zoom right now to connect across the world. And man, Zoom's business is going to skyrocket because of this. Yeah. How many people are going to sign up for a Zoom subscription as a result of this quarantine? And then how many people are going to realize that their business can still be effective with an offsite workforce using Zoom and Skype and Trello and whatever other tools they choose to use to stay productive? There's some great things that people are going to be forced into solving for their business. Amazon is so on the forefront of this. They have the vans and they have the overnight delivery on so many different products. They have second day delivery on almost anything you want to buy from Amazon. Yeah, in the US, but they're moving into other countries in the same scenario, and so they're so ahead. Alibaba, same kind of a thing. It's just so forward thinking, and businesses like that are going to thrive in the future economy as a result of this kind of a thing. When people realize, oh, you mean I don't have to go to the store to buy toilet paper? I can just order it on Amazon and it shows up the next day to my house. They're going to get comfortable with that and not go to the store so much anymore. So the store businesses are going to have to figure out how to be competitive. How are they going to stay in business when the economic conditions change as a result of this? And, we've bantered on resourcefulness as part of this, and creative thinking as part of what we're talking about this idea of resilience. I think that there's so much that businesses can learn by being forced into this situation.
But also, I'm noting this in the studio environment, where now each and every single person that is working needs to become a small entrepreneur of himself, because of course you are noticing I'm having this. A lot of people are talking about it, but managers becoming micromanagers, employees disappearing. But the part of being empathetic, both sides, try to understand that if somebody wants to achieve something, he needs help from you. Whether you are an employee, whether you are a boss. Yeah. Maybe as a boss, you don't need to stare at your employees' neck because they are in the office. You can just say, hey, by the way, Michael, I need this done by this time, and then we are going to do a review, and I leave it up to you. This is amazing. Because
and it forces managers to learn how to be a better manager, how to give better feedback, how to give better direction, because they don't get to stand over the shoulder of the employee anymore.
Absolutely.
So it's so many interesting opportunities that are emerging out of this in hardship, which is the disappointing thing, but it's a good reset button for a lot of businesses to figure out, how do I emerge from this in a bigger and better way?
Absolutely.
And that's resilience. You go take resilience to, I love the boxing. Boxing is a great metaphor for so many things, but you're getting punched in the face right now and you're going to get knocked down right now. Are you going to lay there on the mat and say, I quit? Or are you going to get up and say, you know what, I'm going to figure out how to be resilient and win this fight? Yeah. So which person are you going to be? Because we're all getting punched in the face. It's not just you. Everybody's getting punched in the face and everybody is laying on the mat. and how are you going to get yourself back up, I think is so critical of a perspective.
I used to box as well, and I have to
you
tell
did,
you,
yeah?
Yeah, for 15 years.
Oh, good.
And I will tell you, most of the time, sometimes you have to get punched in the face and use those 8 seconds to catch your breath. One, if you have been done doing actual fights, those 8 seconds that you catch your breath in between, one, it's blissful because you are there and you can actually catch your breath. And number 2, that's your time to think and say, okay, this guy is stronger, faster, and more in shape with me. What I'm going to do? I'm going to make him tired. I'm going to try to give 3 shots, 100% power and see how that goes. Yeah. So this is
change your strategy.
Change your strategy, and sometimes you need to be knocked down because in the middle of a round is 3 minutes, right? So that a minute and a half, you need to catch your breath and say, okay, now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna try to, give it all I got, or I'm gonna start running like a rabbit.
So, well, either way, it's a change of strategy, and you've got to change your strategy to be able to win the fight. And
absolutely,
I think that's a great thing. I need to wrap up, and I love that as kind of a closing mindset of, and I'm grateful to know that you were a boxer, and I love that metaphor because I wasn't a boxer. I have a black belt in karate, but I never did the knock yourself out. It was always point sparring kinds of things. I love that mindset of 8 seconds, that sometimes you have to get knocked down. You get your 8 seconds to re-strategize, rethink what you're doing so that you can win the fight in the end. And we're all getting that 8 seconds right now. We're all getting punched. We're knocked down. You got 8 seconds because your clients aren't calling you right now. They're putting their projects on hold. Everybody's panicking. You're stuck inside your house. This is 8 seconds for you to sit back and say, what am I going to do to emerge from this in a bigger and better way? How do I win this fight? And I think that's a great perspective.
Absolutely. I just had a call with the client, and this is the part of being empathetic. We know we are suffering. They are suffering. What I did with them for the studio said, hey, I know you're suffering. Is there anything I can do for you? Yeah. Like, I understand, we have payments coming up. Of course, we will appreciate more business from you, but I know that you cannot guarantee that. But listen, we are here if you need something, coaching for your staff. And surprisingly enough, what happened, they said, hey, write me a proposal because actually I think this is interesting. You know, and you just need to reach out in the right way. Yeah.
Resourcefulness and creative thinking. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Michael, has been a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope we can see each other live soon.
Yes, we will. As soon as the borders are not shut down, the imaginary borders are not closed to the world.
Palmi, you're listening to GLC Live. Thank you so much to Michael Janda at More Janda. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe.
Leave a comment.
Yes.
Yes. Good. Thank you, brother. This was super fun, and it's so good to meet you. And I'm grateful that you and your loved ones are healthy. So I'm grateful to hear that from you. So thank you.